The Mother's Return by VOGEL. We left that morning, the room still dim, her kiss lingering like a bruise of light. A suitable suitor, I told myself. Some daydreams shout while others whisper. I tried to laugh and my steps quickened and I pressed my lips together as if I could hold the moment in place, as if I could ignore the quiet truth that something in me had shifted. The smell of flowers in the afternoon sun, those roses that open only when they must, they felt now like memories shattering in the air. Battles lost, battles won. At the train station, smoke drifted upward in thin, uncertain, horizontal lines. My mother once told me that becoming yourself means holding two truths at once. She would lift her hands as if shifting nothing in the air. I watched the train steam rise and thought, she's holding more than two, and two divided by nothing is still nothing. I realize now the playfulness between us was beginning to vanish. Our laughter, silly talk, which I adored, was disappearing. In its place was a strange attentiveness, as if she were studying me for clues. And when I turned back, looking towards the hotel with its tall, modern beams and glass, I saw it. I saw the split. And I looked through the portal, and for a second, I could see it. It wasn't a vision. It wasn't an hallucination. It was just a misalignment, like a film reel slipping. One version of her stood by the bed, and another sat on the floor, knees drawn up, waiting for someone, and I suddenly feared that it might be me. I remember distinctly the morning, the fast sunshine so diffuse, my customary train ride out of the city, and for some reason there was a sudden thrust and pivot in the car, and I kept my eyes down on the book I was reading of early childhood phases, my attention wrapped in the oral phase now. Feeling the look of others in the train car, barely glancing up, I caught a passenger's eyes. And in them I could see something missing in me that now I could only find in him. His rage, and that my father was quickly becoming absolved equally among all my other sins, and that I had nothing further to hate. But in not being the object for her, I could lose my status as a privileged object. It was safer to occupy myself in her dream, I realized. I could only dream now about my own missing object, the swollen breast, my constant need to find satisfaction there. The harsh sound and the rumble of the tracks beneath me, and a kind of gentle release as the city blurred into psychological ink. I kept my eyes on the book in my lap. The words felt too close, too accurate, transgressing the rules as often as I could. And when I finally looked up, I caught the gaze of a man across the aisle. And for a moment, his eyes were mine, and then hers, and then someone else's entirely. I could feel the gaze of others from several other positions in the train car. The rage I once carried towards my father left a hollow where certainty used to be. And in that hollow, she had placed me carefully, desperately, as the figure she needed. The sacred object, the one who could hold her together, the one who promised her wholeness. But as the train lurched forward, I felt something shift again. I was no longer sure which version of her I loved or which version of me she had chosen. The truth I'm allowed to see, it opens so rarely. The portal cannot really be counted on. I followed her up the office building stairwell, the concrete echoing each step. The light from the high window cast long shadows on the wall, hers first, then mine. And the stairwell hummed with a strange sound, the ones that buildings make when they hold a secret. At the landing, her shadow hesitated. She didn't, but the shadow did, and for a moment, the two shapes separated, one continuing downward on the staircase, the other lingering as if listening for something. Then it ascended upward. I blinked, and the shadows rejoined, but the split stayed with me like a held breath. She turned back to me, but it wasn't me she saw. Her expression was too young, was too old, too familiar. She didn't even recognize me. As we descended further down the staircase, behind each other, a second shadow appeared beside hers, a large male figure, imposing, overshadowing. The two shadows merged, then separated again, moving with her, but not quite in time. Then a shadow similar to mine merged, then faded away from her. I felt a tightening in my chest. It was a recognition that I did not want. By the time we reached the lobby, only one shadow remained, but I knew what I had seen. I knew with a kind of quiet dread that she had seen someone like me see it and witness it. For months she had mentioned something about paperwork, always in fragments. A contract she needed to sign, a goal she was pursuing, not for herself, she insisted, but for me. Her voice would drift in and out of coherence, as if the story were being told by two narrators, two versions sharing one body. One afternoon on a crowded street we often walked, I saw her ahead of me. She moved with purpose, almost with relief, as if returning to a place she'd been summoned from long ago, and I followed behind her. She entered a towering office building, its glass facade reflecting the sky like a blank memory. I stepped inside the lobby just as the elevator doors closed around her. The panel lights flickered upward. 12, 18, 27, until they stopped at 39. I quickly scanned the directory, lawyers, consultants, medical offices, and then a name caught my eye. The Real You Incorporated. Huh. Strange. The words felt wrong, like a mistranslation of something much older. I took the next elevator, and when the doors opened, the hallway was empty, except for a single door at the end, slightly ajar. I walked slowly to the door, and I glanced inside. There she sat at a long table, pen in hand. Across from her was a man whose face I could not fully see. She looked up at him with the expression of a child awaiting approval. I realized at that point that the document she was signing was some sort of decree, a promise, a contract that would secure her wholeness for the future with the exact requirements necessary. And she was offering others the roles she believed would keep her whole. And I was in one of those roles. But to become the chosen one, not an original object, which is always so completely devoid and empty, to be the chosen one, we have to give something up. And I feared I knew what it was. We left that morning, though the room felt dimmer than I remembered. Her kiss still swollen on my lips, but carrying a faint aftertaste of something like deja vu. A suitable suitor, she murmured again. Some daydreams shout, others whisper, the same line twice. I began to laugh, though the sound came out thinner this time. My feet hastened as before, but I pressed my lips together as if trying to keep something from escaping. The smell of flowers awakened in the afternoon sun, but the scent was slightly off as the memories fractured in the air. Some battles lost, and the others I got tired of fighting. Relinquished of any momentum gained, I scanned the platform station, leaking smoke and steam, though the steam rose vertically now, curling back toward me. I still remember her mother saying that we must love with an open hand, her hands outstretched, releasing some empty object in the air. The playfulness completely disappeared. No more laughter, no more silly talk that grounded my attention, the frivolous laughter that I adored, but this time the silence after it felt rehearsed. When I left the hotel room that day, I could see the split again. I could look through the portal, though the angle was wrong. A barely perceivable shift had occurred in the room, a few inches just to my left. My breath held her kiss, but it felt borrowed from someone else. And I couldn't help wondering who I was really kissing now. I remember distinctly the morning, the fast sunshine, so diffuse, though now it flickered as if passing through shuttering blinds. During my customary ride out of the city, the sudden thrust and pivot in the train car jarred a memory I was yet to have. Keeping my eyes down, the book on early childhood phases lay open to the oral phase once again, though the sentence I didn't remember reading was underlined. Barely glancing up, I caught a passenger's eyes. The same man, but his gaze lingered longer, as if he remembered me first. Other passengers in other positions lifted their heads, and they looked over at me. I could see something missing in me that I could not find in him, though the missing part felt strangely familiar. The rage that my father carried. Now I have to question if it was mine. The rage dissolved but unevenly, leaving a hollow with sharper edges. And in not being the object for her, I would lose my status as a privileged object, but this time it really meant something. I could imagine myself in her dream now, though the dream felt slightly different. I could only dream about my own missing object, the swollen need for satisfaction that always pulsed through me. The emptiness that I was hiding from myself was emerging. We left that morning from the barely lit hotel room, though the shadows were longer. Her kiss lingered like a borrowed memory, borrowed from a stranger. She looked like herself, but not entirely. The softness around her eyes was now a faint hardness. A hesitation slowed down and reversed. The child who refused to be left behind stood closer to the surface. A faint voice murmured something about promises made and broken. On the platform, smoke curled upward in thin, uncertain lines, though the smoke drifted sideways for a moment against the wind. My mother told me that becoming yourself means holding two truths at once. But in this version, I heard her say 3. I watched the steam rise and thought, she's holding more than 2, perhaps more than she can carry. The playfulness between us had been replaced by a kind of quiet tension, a strange attentiveness, though this time she seemed to be studying someone just behind me. When I turned back toward the hotel, I saw it again, the split. But the misalignment was sharper, like a film reel slipping twice. One version of her stood by the bed, another sat on the floor, knees drawn up, though her head was turned toward the door, as if expecting someone else. There's always a certain comfort in procuring my place on the train, watching the city and all my past blur behind me, though the blur now contained shapes I didn't recognize. I kept my eyes on the book in my lap, the chapter on early attachment, though the page number had changed. When I finally looked up, I caught the gaze of the man across the aisle, and for a moment, his eyes were mine, then hers, and somebody else's entirely. But the sequence reversed itself this time. I realized then that the rage I once carried toward my father had dissolved again, but this time it left a residue, and in that residue, in that hollow that she had placed me carefully, desperately, as the figure she needed through her desperation, it felt more practiced this time. The sacred object, the one who could hold her together. But as the train lurched forward, I felt something shift backward. I was no longer sure which version of her I loved or which version of me she had chosen or whether she had chosen me at all. I followed her up the stairwell, the concrete echoing each step, though the echo arrived a fraction late. The light from the high window cast long shadows on the wall, hers first, then mine. But her shadow was already splitting before she moved. At the landing, her shadow hesitated again, though she paused this time, as if listening to it. For a moment, the shapes separated, one continuing downward, the other lingering, as if listening for something I couldn't hear. I blinked, and the shadows rejoined, but the split stayed with me like a held breath that wasn't mine. She turned back to me, but it wasn't me she saw. Her expression, too familiar, but now tinged with a recognition of somebody else this time. As we descended the staircase, a second shadow appeared besides hers, the larger male figure again, though this time it stepped ahead of her, leading. The two shadows merged and separated again, moving with her, but not quite in time. I felt a tightening in my chest, a recognition I didn't want, though it felt inevitable. By the time we reached the hotel lobby, only one shadow remained, though it wasn't hers. And I knew, with a kind of quiet dread, that she had seen someone like me see her, see it this time. Or perhaps she had seen him instead. For several months, she dropped hints about some paperwork again. She had to sign a contract from some unknown entity, though the entity's name changed each time that she mentioned it. As I appealed to reason, stories drifted in and out of her speech regularly about a personal goal she was trying to attain. Not for herself, but for me, though in this version, she said, it was for us. One day, by chance, on the busy street we often walked, I caught the image of her entering the same large office building, though the building's glass reflected a sky that didn't match the weather. Out of curiosity, I followed her again. As she entered the elevator, she ascended the elevator shaft, though the numbers flickered, 12, 18, 27, 40, 41, 39. I scanned the building directory and the elevator stopped on floor 39 once again. What could possibly bring her here? Scanning the directory of lawyers, doctors. Then something caught my eye again. The business listing now read, A Better You Incorporated. There was a pulsing in my body as the portal opened up again and just as quickly closed. At the train station, smoke drifted upward in thin, uncertain, horizontal lines. My mother once told me that becoming yourself means holding two truths at once. She would lift her hands up as if shifting nothing in the air. I watched the steam rise in the train station area and thought, she's got to be holding more than two. And yet two divided by nothing is still nothing. The window is just a window until she turns toward me, hollowed by the news of her mother's death. Something in her loosens. I step closer, meaning only to hold her. But the moment my hand touches her cheek, the whole world tilts. It isn't her. It's Tama. It's her mother. I say, "Hello, Tama. I've missed you so badly." The aging beauty I once loved in silence so many years ago. The one I could never kiss, though the desire lived in both of us. She looks at me now through her daughter's face, the same tremor in the mouth, the same way she waited for me without asking. A small phrase escapes her, one only Tama ever said. When we love, we must love with an open hand. I thought, impossible, precise, a private key turning in a lock. And for a moment, she is fully here. Not a memory, not a symbol. It's her. It's Tama. And she's alive in me. And just as quickly the moment closes, the daughter returns. But I've crossed into a place I can't uncross. The dead have touched me. The repetition is broken. Nothing in the story can return back to its earlier shape.